First and foremost, I would like to make sure that we do the proper introductions. I'm the councilwoman for the district, Sherry Dorsey Walker, and I'm happy to serve in the 6th district. I would like to also acknowledge Parkway Academy, Ms. Charlotte Miller-Lacey, who always opens up the school whenever we have to have meetings or whenever we need anything in the community. She's always available. Thank you, Ms. Charlotte. Wave your hand, Ms. Charlotte. Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to Wilmington Police. They're always available, and we've been getting wonderful compliments. We did a walkthrough. I did a walkthrough with the leadership of Hedgeville yesterday. President Heather Taylor, if you would just wave your hand, please. Vice President Reggie Williams. We have our secretary and our treasurer. Secretary is Ms. Denise McIntyre. Oh, excuse me, she's the treasurer, bless the Lord. And our secretary is Mr. Juan Robertson. I'd like to just say thank you to all of you for coming on this evening. Each and every one of you are very important to me as constituents of the 6th district. I'd like to, before we even get started, we have Attorney General Matt Denn here with us on this evening. And what I'd like to share with you about Attorney General Matt Denn, he came in and he showed his commitment to the city of Wilmington. He came in and gave hundreds of thousands of dollars so that the officers that are walking in Wilmington, that comes from his office. So first, I'd like to just say thank you for that. Thank you. He's made a commitment to changing the vacant houses, to ensuring that people are working in the city of Wilmington, that there are job creation opportunities. He sat down, he's the first Attorney General ever in the history of the state of Delaware to sit down with every single council person that would sit down with him, and did it individually to find out what our needs are in the city. And so for that, I say thank you, and I say I respect you wholeheartedly, I appreciate you, and I guess that will be your introduction. So come on. Thanks for a job well done.
Pleasure.
Appreciate you. Excuse me, sir.
Elmer, I can't do that for you. Councilwoman, thank you very much for kicking this off, and at least half of which the nice things she said about me are true. The money that we have that's paying for these foot patrol officers, we applied for jointly with the city, and I want to make sure that everybody knows that the city was a full partner in that. And I'm going to come back to that at the end because that money is going to run out at some point if we don't get it renewed, and it is very, very important to me that we get it renewed because I think that these foot patrols are very important, and I want to keep them going, especially as you can feel we're getting into the summer now, and I want to make sure that we have them through the summer and then beyond. That's part of the reason that we're here is that we got this grant from the state to pay for these foot patrol officers, and there's a lot of different conditions on the grant in terms of how many officers go out, and when they go out, they're out 6 p.m. to 1 a.m., 7 nights a week. They go to different parts of the city depending upon the city's assessment of where they're needed, and they actually sit down every Wednesday and look at the crime statistics to figure out where they're needed. But a part also of the grant that we got is that once a month we're supposed to go out to the communities where the officers are patrolling, us and the city police department, which is why Inspector Harris is here, and listen to the communities where these officers are, basically to hear from you, how's it going, how do you think we could be improving how it's going. And it's, we're certainly most interested in how the foot patrol part of it is going, but if you have suggestions for us about other ways that we can improve policing in the city, we're very, very interested in hearing that as well. These are and we do two meetings once a month. So we did 2 meetings last month, about a month ago, right. And we'll keep doing them. And we're going to do a second meeting tonight at about 7:30 up at St. Paul Church, and we'll keep doing it as long as the foot patrols are out, because it's been very helpful to us to hear back from people. The last thing I'll mention, and then we'll basically just be listening after that, is I mentioned the money. Right now, the foot patrol officers are paid for through the end of June. We have a proposal that is sitting with the General Assembly right now. In fact, I'm going down tomorrow to talk to them again about it, to put a lot of money into crime prevention efforts in the state, some of which would go directly into this fund that's paying for these foot patrol officers, and allow us to keep them out there at least through the end of the summer and hopefully beyond. That money we would also be hoping to use to improve the video camera surveillance system in the city. We have video cameras right now. We don't have cameras right now in parts of the city where we ought to have them. We don't have enough people who are staffing the cameras, so we can only really use them to investigate crimes after they happen. We don't have enough people who are watching them to actually be able to call police officers when something's about to happen, which is what you really would like to be able to use them for. We would like to be investing some money in substance abuse treatment programs, in reentry programs for our inmates that are coming out of correctional facilities, for after-school and summer programs for our teenagers, to keep them, doing something productive and not getting in trouble during that time when they're not in school. We would like to be investing some money in our high-poverty elementary schools so they can hire additional teachers and paraprofessionals. Half of those high-poverty elementary schools are in the city of Wilmington, 8 out of the 16, and the list goes on. So there is money that the legislature has that it got through settlement monies that from settlements we made with various banks for things that they did that they shouldn't have in the financial markets. They have the money, and we are trying to get them to dedicate it to doing some of these things that I just mentioned instead of what we're concerned that they might do and just spend it to try to balance the budget as the end of the fiscal year comes up and they have to pass a balanced budget. So that is, I'm mentioning it because it's the middle of May and they have to balance their budget at the end of June. So it's getting to be crunch time in terms of persuading them that they ought to spend it on these things that we think are very important. So I just wanted to throw that out there to you. If you have a state representative, if you have a state senator, if you know other people who live in the city and they know who their state representative and state senator is, now is really the time to let them know that, and they all know what the money is. If you tell them that you want the settlement money spent on the crime prevention program, they'll know exactly what you're talking about, and it's very important that they get that message. So, Inspector, I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
Just a little bit. Thank you, first of all, for inviting the Wilmington Police to these meetings. As such, as the Attorney General says, we have 7 officers, 7 nights a week, 7 hours a night. And from what I heard, they've been in this area for the last 2 weeks, and it's been all positive. Yeah. The one thing I would like to add is if you can identify some of the vacant properties in the areas for the officers when you're interacting with them so that they can list that, because they have to do an activity report every night that they work, and the supervisor has to do a report as well. That information gets back to me and gets turned over to the Attorney General's offices because that's part of the grant. We have to keep statistics on what the officers doing, the activities and whatnot. So if you could help us out on that part, I greatly appreciate it. And I want to thank you. And like I said, Lieutenant Roush is the sector commander up in this area as well. And everything has been positive with the officers out here each and every night from this area. So I want to thank you.
Thank you.
So this is your time. Yes, sir.
I want to tell you that I believe it's a fine job to see these officers out here. I believe it's cutting down on crime or the young people thinking about doing the crime because they knowing that the officer's going to be there night and day. And I think they ought to extend this program through the wintertime because I think it helps the residents feel more comfortable in their homes. They can come out and interact with their neighbors. And I think it's all positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to thank, I'm glad you got in contact with the Hedgeville Civic Association so we can put out flyers to get some of our community involved to talk to. But I also wanted to thank again Lieutenant Roush. She has been like such a godsend to Hedgeville because she knows that we've been asking for this for like 2 years. And like just the reason why I was late because the neighbors stopped me asking me to tell me about how much they're coming outside now. And that's what all the neighbors are saying. They're finally being able to come outside because we really had a problem with most people here not being able to enjoy their neighborhood anymore. They wouldn't sit on their porch, they wouldn't sit on their step, they would walk to the stores, and that's something we always did in this neighborhood. So it's like with all the police that we have been having here, they are once again walking and enjoying their neighborhood, as well as their neighbors, like Reggie said. So I wanted to thank Lieutenant Roush once again because I stay in contact with her on a daily basis. She calls and checks with me all the time to see what the neighbors are saying or what needs they need, and she always stays on. If we say something, like at 5 o'clock, by 6 o'clock, it's done. So I want to thank Lieutenant Roush once again for all his service.
Yes, sir.
I've noticed some of the same things. Reggie and I live on the same street, and with the officers constantly patrolling the area, we've noticed that problem houses that normally have a lot of activity in terms of drinking and drugs and things, that's really cut down a lot. It does. It makes it a lot easier for us to go outside and enjoy being out there. Whereas when we normally go out there. There's really way too much crime to be outside.
Our 15-year-old can actually go outside and sit on the front porch and not smell the weed from 3 doors down from our house.
Which is
Nice.
a constant battle. You don't want that around your kids.
Right.
How have the policemen walking around one at a time by themselves solo?
No, the officers are paired up as twos, and then sometimes if we don't have the sufficient numbers, they meet 2 and 1, but they're all within the same area, close to me together, so if there's anything happen, they know they're not spread out too far away from one another.
A question, with the funding that you've gotten to put these police officers on the streets, are these adding to the police force, or is it just taking them from other areas of the city to be able to be walking the streets in a specific neighborhood for a period of time?
These are officers on overtime. You want to go ahead?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, these officers are on overtime, so they're not being taken from anyplace else. They're working overtime shifts. That's the good news, is that they're not being taken away from anything. You know, the bad news is that you know, you can't do that forever. And you know, we've been doing this for 2 months now, and you know, once we've been doing it for 4, 5, 6 months, you know, these guys and these women, they get tired, because that's rough to, you know, I've walked around with some of these folks, and they've just done a regular shift the day before, and now they're doing, you know, 7 hours walking around. You know, that's a long shift. So, you know, over the long run, what my hope is that the city is going to hear exactly the kind of things that you're saying tonight, and that this is going to become part of their regular deployment plan for their officers. They're just now graduating another class of officers, so they're working their way towards where they're going to be staffed at the level that they want to be, and hopefully that'll give them the ability to actually make this part of the way that they regularly deploy officers. But for the time being, given that they can't do that, it's overtime city officers. The county and the state police have volunteered to provide overtime officers if there are nights that the city can't get enough officers to do the overtime. But once we were about 3 weeks into this, I think, then the city was able to cover, you know, all the shifts seven nights a week. So again, as we go further and further along, we may have to ask the county or the state for their help again. But for me, the ideal thing is to have it be city officers. It's, you know, it's the city, they know the area the best, and so the ideal thing is to have city police officers patrolling the city.
So will it be support from our mayor to add police officers at some point?
Yes, on Friday, we are graduating 34 new officers, and they will hit the street on Monday.
And are they going to stay in the neighborhood, or are you going to rotate them to other neighborhoods?
Yeah, based on our crime analysis that we do on Wednesday mornings, will dictate where we move the walking assignments to. And then after the class graduate, there's going to be some other decisions made to continue the program as well with some other additional patrols.
So we really don't know what the outcome will be once we move the officers out of this neighborhood for a period of time.
No,
That has caused crime to again.
Right. But you're going to have more officers when this class comes out before we decide on where we're going to move them. So the street activity for the officers on the platoons will be higher. The numbers for each of the platoons are currently working will be higher. So we're hoping that will help out. And then we have some other plans in the works as well that will go along with the foot patrols and also these same areas. So we're not going to take them all away. There will be some additional patrols within all of the cities once we decide on what we're going to do with them.
I understand they're collecting funds for the Boys Club to remodel it or rebuild it, and that would keep them off the street. Is that so? You're collecting funds for the Boys Club?
Well, I think
That's been going on for quite some time.
I think the Boys Club, well, they're always doing their own fundraising. They are very supportive of this proposal that we have in front of the legislature for these settlement funds that I talked about, because they will certainly be one of the people that applies for them if the funds are made available. So they're not earmarked for anybody right now, but I think they're hopeful that with this after
Are they
school.
going to tear the whole interior out?
I don't know what their specific, they have lots of different.
What about asbestos?
What's
Don't
that?
you know that?
What's actually,
The dollars to take them out.
saying it?
So there's
That's
asbestos.
It's asbestos.
That's part of the remodel.
Yeah,
That's the remodel.
It's going to be $1 million, $1.2 million just to remove the asbestos. So in the interim, what Parkway Academy has done is they've opened up the old St. Hedwig's Gym at 1009 Sycamore Street. And so we actually have a program that we run out of there. We have several programs that we run out of there, but one of the main ones that was actually established here in the 6th District is Above the Rim. And that's a basketball league where the young people have to wear their pants above their waist. They can't use profanity in the gym. And we go check on them. We, the people who are engaged with Above the Rim, go to the schools and check on them to make sure they're being good citizens. And they have to do an hour of community service a week as well. And Ms. Charlotte's husband is very much engaged with that, Coach Lacey. So in the interim, while we don't have the Boys and Girls Club, we, the community, and I say we because I don't do anything by myself, I work diligently with the community and the young people. We established this because we can't sit around and bark about, oh, this club is too big. We have to do something to help our children.
So the way the money would work is there's about $1 million, there's $3 million, we asked them to put $3 million into these after school and summer programs, $1 million a year for 3 years, and they would set them up as competitive grants. And they would only areas of the state that were classified as lower income areas would be eligible. So there are a number of parts of the city that would be eligible to apply for them. One example of a program that I think would be a good model for other ones that would apply, Reverend Livingston, who is he's the minister at Mother AOMP Church up at 8th and Van Buren?
8th and Franklin.
8th and Franklin. He had a program last summer. It was really run on a pretty lean budget. He had about 80 kids. Well, you were there. He had about 80 kids in every day, all day long. They did about half the day schoolwork, half the day non-schoolwork stuff. And they were off the street, and they started out the school year without falling behind like so many kids do during the summer. There weren't a lot of frills or anything. They just sort of had the building and some programming, and he won the money to do that through a competitive grant program, very much like the one that we would want to set up through this. So those are the kinds of things that if we get the money, I'm hoping that people will do. I think there's a lot of organizations in the community, both in Wilmington and some other parts of the state, that really are interested in helping these teenagers out and would be willing to do programs that aren't really high-end programs that don't have a lot of overhead and do them really well. So that's the kind of program I'm hoping is going to apply. But Boys and Girls Club always does well when they apply for grants because they run good programs and they know what they're doing. Yes, sir.
Is the Parks and Recreation gonna have the free lunch again this year for all the kids?
Yes, they are.
Breakfast.
It will be
Breakfast as well.
Because the kids out there, see a lot of kids participate in that. and
Yes.
It'd be a shame to not let them,
It's breakfast.
not have that again.
He's, just so we know, he does state issues, I do city issues. So anything dealing with Parks and Rec, I would help you with that. So anything dealing with the state, you would want to talk to the Attorney General, just so we have clarity on who's doing what. But we work together, but I don't want him to feel like, oh my goodness, that's,
No, I'm glad he asked. That's actually good news that I didn't know, so I learned something.
so it'll be a position part.
Yes, sir.
How do we get cameras into the areas that have more problems? Like you said, the police are going to leave and go to different areas as they leave. It sounds like it'd be a good idea to move cameras in.
It's money. I mean, there's already been a study done. Someone actually did a map, the State Department of Homeland Security, whatever the name of it is. They actually did an overlay map. They did a map of where all the crime has been occurring in the city, and then they did an overlay of where the cameras are. And you can tell pretty clearly when you compare the one to the other, there's some areas where there's crime occurring where there aren't any cameras. So part of it is just purchasing cameras and installing them in the areas where you have that gap. We have some cameras that aren't operational and getting, not a lot, but some. And it always seems to be the ones that you wanted to be able to find the crime that just happened. So we want to make sure that all the cameras are being maintained and in good operating order. But then that's the less expensive part of it, because the cameras in the larger scheme of things aren't a real budget buster. Fixing them isn't a real budget buster, but staffing them is really where the big long-term cost comes in. And there's a ratio, there's sort of an accepted ratio for how many the maximum number of cameras that you want any one person to be responsible for watching at any given time, if they're actually going to be looking out for things that are happening and contacting the police to alert them to things. And we're at like 6 times what that ratio is. So the big cost issue is having enough people who are monitoring the cameras, who have the proper training, so that we can use them to see things before they happen and be able to alert the police to go there. Right now, the only thing we can really use them for as a practical matter is after something happens, if you know there was a camera there, you go get the tape and see if you got any video from it.
See, the reason why I asked is we've been asking for 3 years to have cameras in our area. And where our area is, it's the lower end of Sycamore Street. And it's a pass-through because there's a light right there so that you can go left or right at the light. You can get the 95 real easy. And it's a drop-off section and a pickup section for drugs. And now, over the past year and a half, there's been lots of prostitution there. And it's really crime-riddled area because there's a couple roads that intersect, like South Bend and Van Buren, that also has the same problem. All right, and cameras would be really good in this area. And if manning the cameras is a problem, maybe we can get.
Well, come up to my house.
What has happened, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to make sure you have clarity on it. There was $1 million given to the city by the state to buy cameras. They used a portion of it for shot spotting, which is when somebody shoots, they can tell where the shot has come from, okay? So if they shoot at 3rd and Clayton, they'll be able to detect that that's from where the bullet was shot. Here's the issue. We have been fighting for the last 3 years to get cameras on that block.
We said at every one of our meetings.
But here's the issue. We can only do so much. That comes from the higher up. And so I've talked to the mayor extensively about this is where the cameras are needed. I don't know what the issue is as far as the releasing of the funds and why the cameras have not been put into the communities. I don't know. And this is not saying anything negative about the mayor. This is he has Open Door Wednesdays. Go sign up and ask him, why can't we have our camera on these particular blocks in Hedgeville? Because I think that he has to hear from you. I've said it several times.
We went up there
They
too.
go on,
Our board went up there
the
so many
community
times
needs
about
to
the
come
cameras.
together and say to him, we need these cameras at the 1100 block of Sycamore because in the last 3 years, prostitution has been enhanced, drug dealing has been enhanced. My 15-year-old, I have to be concerned about whether or not somebody's smoking marijuana in the presence of my child, but thank God for the police walking around now. But if that's not going to last, how do we maintain our community? So please, by all means, go talk to him and let him know. I've been talking, fighting, but please help me fight. That's what I'm asking.
Being part of the state, the dual part to this camera thing is what about vetting certain citizens that can actually donate their time?
They're not going to do that, and I'm going to tell you why. It has to be someone trained, and we talked about this in the budget.
They said retired police officers.
Yeah, and retired officers aren't going to do it either. We talked about this in the budget. They had X amount of retired officers. They did it for a short period of time. So what we've done in our budget, the city budget, is we've added 145,000, I believe it is, 145, 150,000, and we're going to hire 3 additional people to monitor the cameras. So whatever that comes out to, 45,000 per person. So that's what we're putting into the budget, in addition to an additional 300,000 for another police academy class. So those are the things that we, the council, are trying to put in the budget so that we can ensure that your safety is what's key to us, and it's guaranteed. But as far as the monitoring, I'm going to be very transparent with you. We have one person monitoring those cameras right now. There's no need for me to stand here and tell you a lie. One person monitoring all the cameras for the city. Hence why we need more people to monitor these cameras. Hence why I need your help to fight with me so that we can get more monitors and we can get more cameras in the trouble spots.
Well, Mr. Mayor, you're not saying you've got the council going up there.
Yeah, we've been going,
Yeah,
we've been going up there for 2 years straight. We've been asking him, Helene Kelly, as well as Bob Morrison told us, they came to our Hedgeville Civic Association meeting and told us when they got the $1 million to get the cameras. Since then, we've been begging for the cameras constantly. We talk to Sherry constantly all the time. She's been fighting with us. But I mean, the whole community really has to do it because we go up there on the Wednesdays to go talk to the mayor on his open door policy. We always ask for the lighting and the cameras because it's so dark in Hedgeville that even if you had a camera on some of these streets, it won't be seen because you have overgrown trees and it's pitch black out there. So we ask them for the same 3 things over and over again. We need cameras for Hedgeville. It's a high crime area. We was at high alert, which was red alert last summer with all the shootings and the killings that we've had. And then it's also pitch black on most of our streets. Our street received 2 Delmarva powder lights only because it was shot. They had a shootout like at the Wild Wild West up and down our block. And we already have cameras on the Pulaski, like built in across the street, the library, Polish Library Bar Association, and it was still pitch black, and they couldn't see nothing on their cameras. And they found about 38 to 39 bullet shells along with my truck, the windows being shot out, and a lot of other cars on the block. That's why we finally did, after me being here over 15 years, we got 2 lights on the block. But we constantly ask for them cameras. We go to the mayor, we talk to Helene Kelly. We haven't talked to Bob Marshall since he did come to our meeting saying he got the money, but we've been requesting them to get police because it would help us. But we need more than just the cameras, we need lights. And we
Well,
need
the
some of
lights are
these,
coming.
yeah,
We're getting
the lights. Sharon's been working with us with the lights, and we have started the trees getting cut back, but there's so many more trees to go because some people don't want that big gigantic tree that's been sitting there for 30 years moved. But if you don't move it, if something happens under that tree and it's pitch black, I mean, you know, you're out of luck. But we have been fighting constantly for that, and we work with Sherry constantly. We've been going to the mayor. We've been trying to do everything because we live in the community too. But I mean, everybody in the community has to try to fight for it because I mean, I want it. I don't feel safe walking up and down these streets, so I don't. Thankful we finally got cops that could come outside. All my neighbors, we haven't seen people come outside in years on my block. And even when that shooting happened, it was a Sunday. And it was a quiet time. And 3 people that got shot, they weren't even from our area. They were from North Wilmington.
Prisoners in our community.
Yes, that's how we felt. So we've been begging and pleading for the cameras. We've been begging and pleading for the lights. But I mean, it takes more than just us. It's only 4 of us that actually can speak, but we live in a community. We want it too. So we wouldn't not keep on asking for it, but it's really nothing we can do because we don't have the money. So, you know, like Sherry said, it's the higher up.
Could
And
we do
she's been
this?
speaking for us.
Could we do this, the next meeting that we have like this, when we have the Attorney General, let's invite the mayor to the meeting. And that way you can share your concerns with him and he can hear collectively from you.
And he is at a town hall meeting tonight that's going on that starts at 6 o'clock to 8 p.m. at the Woodlawn Library. So if you can make it up there, you can go up there and tell them as well.
Well, I'm sorry, ma'am.
Yes, I have a problem. Last year, if you remember, last spring, we had a bunch of break-ins in Hedgeville. I was one of them. That was break-ins. What happened there? Did anybody get caught?
Somebody got arrested for that, and that's when it stopped.
2 people did get arrested.
Two people arrested, and what was that? Found by law?
Yeah.
I remember
Big
they got
Noah was
arrested.
working on those cases and he did an accident down. My daughter's house got broken into too, and Big Noah did.
Big Noah.
Big Noah did, we had to do. I got a question for you. I wanna know, why does it have to start at 6 o'clock? We still have a lot of younger kids running up and down these streets, coming from
School, Bible school.
at 3 o'clock, and get out at 2:30. They're bombarding coming down the street. Can they come earlier?
Why do the patrols start at 6 o'clock?
Yeah. why
As
can't
opposed
they
to,
walking, yeah, can they at least move it up to 3:30, 3 o'clock, because we got a lot of the kids from, like I said, Bancroft coming down in the parks, and they're coming through the neighborhoods, loud, fighting and carrying on. I know you call the cops, but I think the
Right.
patrol should be out earlier than 6 o'clock, because the kids are coming home from school and it's like
money. I mean, you know, they got X amount of dollars, and so, you know, they're trying to figure out when's the most actual violent crime occurring, and that's what it's really targeted at.
yeah, when these schools get out, that's around here is when these schools are getting out, these young kids are bombarding, coming through the neighborhoods, being disrespectful.
Mhm.
So a couple times I have called the principal and had him come, and he come with a couple cops, but I think the patrol should start at least between 2, work their way up.
No, I mean, hey, I'd like to have them in every neighborhood. I'd like to have them more hours, you know, we're sort of living in the world of the possible right now. The good news is that the bad guys don't know where they're gonna be from week to week either. So that's, you know, part of the reason that they keep moving, because we don't want, what we don't want is just for the activity to shift from one neighborhood to the next, and then, you just sort of move the problem. So that's part of the rationale for the officers moving around, is that we don't want the folks that we're trying to deter from doing this stuff to know where they're gonna be all the time. And the Operation Disrupt cars are still out too, right?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. So you're seeing the car, on top of these foot patrol officers, the city has put out a much larger number of officers in cars at the same time. And it works pretty well together. The officers that are in cars can get around a lot easier and they cover more ground. And so when you have the two of them in the same area, you've got to be you got to either be very bold or a very dumb criminal to commit a crime in an area where that many police officers are.
Yeah, we've seen the cars too. We've been seeing the cars.
We have seen the cars. Well, since Operation Disrupt has gone into effect, to the credit of WPD, violent crime has gone down 62% in the city. So I want to make sure that we're mindful of that. 62% is pretty major. Now, it sounds like, oh my gosh, really? But compared to this time last year, if you look at the statistics, how many shootings we had this time last year compared to this time this year. I'm not just talking about shootings, I'm talking about murders. So when you look at what's been happening, and I did do a ride along with Sergeant Ferris, and I'll tell you the truth. So he got the call, and I'm in the car with him, and we were in Hilltop, and I was like, please don't go to my district, please don't go to my district. So of course he came into Hedgeville. I was like, Lord Jesus. So he came into this district, and then look, I'm going to make sure you have all the resources you need to do that job, because the car turned, your flashing lights. I'm in the car like this, Lord Jesus. But they do such a phenomenal job. And nobody understands unless you actually do those ride-alongs. I didn't do a ride-along for an hour. I went out for 5 hours just so I could get an idea of what needs to be done. So every time I'm on the council floor, I fight so that fire and public safety, which is police and fire, can get their resources, because we should not be bothering police and fire when it comes to protecting our community. You don't try to balance the budget on the backs of the people that are taking care of your city. I just feel personally about that. Hopefully you feel the same way, and you'll continue to fight with me on that one.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned something about empty properties and stuff. Last year, somebody from your office started speaking to us about landlords and slumlords owning properties and stuff. Is there any news with that as to what's going on?
We have a unit, there's a law that allows us to shut down nuisance properties, which are properties where they're basically being used as a front for criminal activity.
Yes.
So we have a unit in our office that's dedicated almost exclusively to finding out about those properties and then starting to go through the legal steps that are involved to shut them down. I think what they're finding is that once they start the process, then a lot of the owners voluntarily, either sell them or take other steps to, board them up or do something to deal with the problem. So if there's a property like that, if you see there's a property that people are selling drugs out of or using for other illegal purpose, and you call our office and you ask for the crime strategies unit, that's the name of the unit that does that work, then they'll physically come out, take a look, and see whether it's possible for us to start the process. The other part of it that we're trying to help with is there's there's also an interest in setting up something so that the city can actually purchase some of the actual vacant or abandoned properties and try to start the process of actually turning them into something that's a benefit to the community. So there's some legislation that's working its way through in Dover, and then hopefully we could actually get some money behind that to make that possible too. Yes,
Attorney General Denn, I'm sorry.
Mr. Denn, if you don't mind introducing me, I'm from the Crime Strategies Unit. I work under Dan Lowe. Dan Lowe came into this meeting last year.
He did. He told us
Definitely
about
Dan
that.
Lowe. My name is Lauren. I come to these meetings regularly in the west side of Sonora to come in, as far as the Hilltop Working Group or the Cool Springs area. Now I'm going to come to Hedgeville. This is my first Hedgeville meeting, as you may recognize my face. There was a property that we recognized about 2 weeks ago on 1208 Sycamore Street, which is a property in this area that we took care of. What we do is, whenever there's a problem property, we try to make sure that the first action we go after is the landlord. We try to inform the landlord that he has an option to comply with us and try to evict the tenants that may be causing problems, whether they're drug dealing, whether they're calling a nuisance to the property in other manners. So if you guys have any properties like that, you know, problem properties where the tenants are causing problems, you can bring it to our attention. I'll give you my business card at the end of the meeting, and we'll try to take care of that. Because we directly go to the landlord, we go after the landlord, we don't necessarily deal with the tenants. So that's how we deal with it in our view, at least. That's all I have to say.
I have a question. What if they homeowners? And they-
Sorry?
I said, what if they homeowners and their kids and stuff is?
Well, once we open the file, we send them a letter of notice. That was our first letter of notice, and within 10 days, they have to respond on that letter of notice. And if they want to hire an attorney and they want to have an actual case, and they want to go to trial, or they want to go to court, then we can do that. But we do have a restrictive law which allows us to take certain actions, such as actually seize the property for a limited time period, and or to fine the owner of the property, even if they're the homeowner, up to $20,000. So there are different actions that we can take, but we need to actually see that that property is a problem property. We need evidence of that.
Now, in the past, what we did with your office is if there was a problem property, say my address, 1714 Chestnut Street, then Dan Logan would contact me and would contact the attorney, well, the law department in the city, police department, L&I, and then we'd meet with the homeowner or the landlord and start the abatement process if they had 12 points within 6 months, which uses property points, or 18 points within 12 months. Will you still be continuing that program?
That's correct. So what we do is we also work closely with L&I and the city, Tony DiNardo. We urge the citizens to make as many calls for services. We call them calls for services. So when you call the police department, you give an exact address. So you actually say that 1208 Sycamore Street. You wouldn't say the 1200 block of Sycamore Street, because it gives us more evidence to work with when we're trying to tie up the landlord and telling him that this is a nuisance property and we need to take care of this property. And the way that we're going to do it is evict tenants. And so what we need is, when you guys make these calls to the police department and you know exactly who it is, you can inform them about their exact address. That helps us a lot in dealing with it. And we do relay this information to the city because the city gives points, and I don't know how the point structure works exactly, so you can inform them on how that point structure works. But I believe that every single call for service that you make on a specific property, the points go up on that property. When you reach 12, then the city can get a fine. There's also a noise ordinance that was passed this past January, which has gone into effect that WPD is applying the streets. So if there's a property where they're drinking late at night and they're causing constant commotion in that specific area, then what you can do is you can call WPD, and WPD will go out there. The first time is a warning. The second time, they can cite them. And that is a $500 fine, I believe. And what happens is that fine goes directly to the tenants. So this is to stop the tenants that may not be doing drug dealing necessarily, but still are causing a nuisance in the property at night when people are trying to sleep.
When they're sitting in their vehicles outside of the properties,
But can
blaring music,
Well, the way that
and they're hanging out in front of the property.
we can still work with that. So what happens is the nuisance abatement law states that anything that is on the property or originating from the property. So if you know that individual lives in that property, but they're just in their car causing the commotion, or they're outside on their stoop causing commotion, then that's still originating from their property. So we can still deal with those issues in a certain manner. And there are very different options that we can take. So we just want to hear any problem properties that you guys may have. You can personally contact me afterwards, or you can relay that to Ms. Walker and she can contact me.
And it sounds like one of the things I want to share with you is we were able to get 3 people out of Hedgeville using the nuisance property law. So what they did is they accumulated 12 points in 6 months, or 18 nuisance property points in 12 months. But once they get to the 6-month point, I don't wait till 12 months. So what I do is when there's a nuisance property, I get in touch with Tony DiNardo, who is from the law department, and he reaches out to WPD. WPD says property 1714 Chestnut Street has 12 points. Well, we're at 4 months and this property has 12 points. Then that's when we reach out to the AG's office, and then they will start the process for abatement. We all sit down for a meeting, and we give, these are the only options that I give as a council person. Either you evict the person, or we suspend your license to rent. So there's no options there, because you're not going to disrupt this community, being a landlord, charging $1,200, and the person may only be paying $5, and the person next door is a homeowner. That's ridiculous. So in that fight, but despite for the cameras, I need you all to help me be Manny Pacquiao. I need some help.
You lost.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Right, I'm not losing. Right, I hurt my shoulder, like he said, the shoulder. Question, just real quick. Is it possible to start, let's see, a pilot program in the 6th and 7th district where we work with the vacant properties, we work with your office, the city, law department, and then what we try to do is turn these properties into home ownership, and we work with interfaith housing. Is that a possibility? The mayor's on board for that. I do have him on board for that one.
Who is?
The mayor. He's on board. I met with him, and he said he's willing to turn the vacant properties into home ownership if your office is willing to help us with it.
I mean, we're happy to do our part. I mean, I think the big issue there is, that you got to pay to, build the homes.
Sure,
But-
we can work with the Local 55, which is a local union that we've been working with.
In our community.
In our community. People from the local community skilled and trained to work in construction. So we can take those same individuals who are actually citizens of the city of Wilmington and have them work to build up the community.
Because interfaith housing does a lot of, like, houses that's been sitting there vacant, they go in and buy a lot of different houses, they gut them out and, bring them back to like brand new, and then first time home buyers, they put it in.
I'm a firm believer there's value in having homeowners and good quality homes just because it's a good thing for the neighborhood. But if you talk to I've been out 4 times now, something like that, with these officers doing foot patrol in other parts of the city, and they have shown me, they said, these streets, we have issues, and then they take me to other streets where they have newer housing, where the lighting is in, and people own their houses, and they're keeping an eye on things, and they said, we don't have problems on the street, we're not even gonna walk on the street, we never have calls from here, so it's worth doing just because it's good for the neighborhood, but it has, if you talk to the law enforcement officers who are actually out doing the job, it has a real impact on, just the crime rate too, so I think it's a great thing. If you see over on the east side, they have this East Side Rising project, which Local 55 is involved in, where they are building some new housing construction. They're doing that with J.P. Morgan Chase, and J.P. Morgan Chase is paying a lot of the cost of constructing the new housing to fulfill part of their responsibility under these settlements that I was talking about. There's 2 other banks that haven't yet done that part of it, Bank of America and Citigroup. They also are responsible for spending some money above and beyond that money I was talking about that they had to pay to the state. They're also responsible for spending some money in the community. And so we're trying to encourage them to do the same kind of thing, because I think that's a good program and it's a good model for us that I'd like to see us do elsewhere in the city. So we'll definitely do our part, but the main thing is getting the money behind it.
Excellent. Real quick, Mr. Reggie, I want to make sure we have a lot of people here from the community who, this is one of your first times actually coming to a meeting. We're actually going to be meeting, the Hedgeville Civic Association has a formal meeting next Tuesday at 6:30 right here at Parkway Academy. So, the Parkway Academy School, because we need to differentiate between the school and the gym. Attorney General has to go to another meeting at St. Paul, so I'm going to see if you have any other questions.
Like some of the new community people, because there's a lot of new people. We see a lot of the same people over and over again at our meetings, but we have a lot of new people we see here tonight. If you have any questions that you want to have to ask them, please ask them now, because we don't know when we're going to see them again. But we do have regular Civic Association meetings that we talk about all of this constantly, and Sherry's constantly there. We have Lieutenant Rouch there. We have a lot of different community people that come in. But this is the first time that Matt Denn has been here, so if you want to talk to him, because this is the big issues, and he's like one of the big boys, so if you have questions, you can speak to him now, because we don't just want a couple people asking, we want everybody in the community to feel like they've been heard tonight.
Yes, ma'am.
What can be done in my community about working on cars and just throwing stuff down? And we have called several times. And I say the time when police will come in and drive past and then they stop.
I only heard the beginning of your question.
You know what, I have to answer that question. We, this year, in the budget, the city council put in money so that license inspection can work early in the morning and late at night. So when you have these issues going forward, all you have to do is call me. I can call license and inspection and get them out there, okay? So now they're not just working 8 to 4:30. They're actually going to be working overtime, okay? So please, here, call me when that happens, and we'll get that taken care of, okay? Anybody else that doesn't have my call?
Any other questions? You're not gonna let Elmer off with no questions for the whole night, right?
And there was some of this walking patrol, I just went and got some of the walking patrol from outside.
There's two of the officers that are currently assigned to the walking area, Officer Massad and Officer Smallwood.
Thank you, guys.
Like this last week, on Sunday night, my neighbor driver, his car broke into it, it took the steering wheel.
Excuse me, everyone, can we please just one person speak at a time so we can address the issues? Please, thank you.
What we do, after the foot patrols are gone, we still have officers that are currently working the street. And Sergeant Roush, who is the commander of Sector 3, can relay that to her officers that work under her to get this area special attention after they leave the area.
Okay.
So she's in charge of that, and please speak with her.
Okay, thanks.
But I think we'll reassess, when this is all done, and that's part of the reason we're here is to hear from people how we could be better. So we'll sit down, and if it looks like starting it an hour later and ending it an hour later, if that looks like it's a better idea, we're gonna look at that. And we want it, above all, we want it to work. Yes, sir.
I did hear about, one of the banks is leaving, in the area that was been in Hedgeville for many of years, the Fulton Bank. Is it any way that you have any kind of input in helping that bank to stay in the neighborhood? Because I'm pretty sure there's a whole lot of people, senior citizens, that rely on that bank. And now they are moving away, I believe it's in June or July.
Okay.
July 11th, and I want to know, is there any way on the state end where they could forward a letter to their home office or ask them, could they keep that branch open?
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
We can try. It's a branch. This is news to me. It's a branch office.
Fulton Bank. On Harrison Street.
Yeah.
Sycamore and Harrison.
Yeah, we can ask. A lot of these banks are trying to cut costs, consolidating. PNC just moved their branch office a year ago. They were right on 9th and Market, right in downtown Wilmington, and they shut that branch office down. So I think a lot of them are just sort of shrinking their
It's just that
footprint.
so many people, senior citizens,
Yeah.
that have relied on this bank for so many years and contributed to that bank.
Right.
And now, being that they're gonna move their branch way out on Kirkwood Highway, I think that would really be a downturn for a lot of cities.
Well, I don't like to overpromise. So, there's stuff that I think we can help with, I'll tell you. I'm happy to write them a letter, but I'm not sure they're gonna listen to me.
Well,
So,
We did have a lot of robberies there as well.
Yeah.
They stuck up in the bank a lot of times.
Every bank, wouldn't
Yeah.
matter what they
not,
Yeah.
got wrong.
We got robbed a lot.
yeah. It's easy for me to tell you that I'll ask and I will, but they don't, they're a private company, they can kind of go where they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you might have a little wait if you just send them a letter.
Yes, sir.
I told them, that's my bank. I talked to them today, and they said they were reaching across that line.
Yeah.
So you might, maybe use the benefit or it's a change.
Okay. Yeah, that's, part of the reason, the big reason we want to get the violence down in the city is that we want to get the violence down in the city. And, we don't want one more person hurt or killed that doesn't have to be. And, the worst part of this job, I've been on this job 4 months, and the worst part of this job is talking to the family members of people who die because of violent crime, which I do. So I would like to be doing that a lot less. So, but on top of that, for jobs in the city and for bringing businesses in the city, it's a huge issue for that too. And it is very, very difficult for us to try to. Some of the companies have been real good. J.P. Morgan Chase they're bringing lots more jobs here, you know, and they're actually building their footprint here. But there's some other companies that they're either moving out to the suburbs or they're talking about leaving the state altogether. And the violent crime rate definitely has an impact on how they view being here, because they want their employees to be safe, and they want, if they're trying to bring customers in, they want customers to feel safe. So, you know, number one reason to deal with it is because you don't want anybody to get hurt. But there's a, you know, number 2 or 3 on that list is that if we want jobs in the city and we want, you know, the city to be thriving in terms of business, then we got to get it under, you know, under control for that reason as well.
And one key point about that is that, you know, the bank itself is leaving, but what happens is that's a pretty large structure there. And what's going to end up happening is now we're going to have one more abandoned unit in that sector or block. We got a funeral home across the street, and then it just turns into a bit of a nightmare because it's not a housing possibility because of the way they designed the bank.
Yeah, I hear you. And I really do think we can turn the corner with this, you know, with this crime issue and with these numbers. And, you know, and I don't want to jinx us, but, you know, I mean, the numbers are getting better, and they're not anywhere near in the universe where we want them to be, but, you know, they're on the right track. So, you know, I'm cautiously optimistic that we're starting to figure out what's the right thing to do, and that if we do more of it and do some of these other things we've been talking about in terms of the cameras and the preventative work that needs to be done, that we can, you know, we can have people not wanting to leave the city anymore, which is where we want to be. This lady didn't get to ask you.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify something about the bank. I went in to speak to them about the meeting, and they are leaving, but the building is going to be a nonprofit organization that's going to help. This is what I hear, our community as far as financial stuff. And as far as what they're going to do is they're going to make the ATM or whatever machine bigger so we can deposit checks. And that's what they were telling me, because I live right there on Beach Street. And with Yossik's empty, that's another big concern. Yossik's is a big building also. So you have Yossik's closing and empty, and now you're going to have the bank closing and empty.
Correct.
It's a big real concern.
Yeah.
So I hope they told me the truth as far as nonprofit coming in, which would be good because the building would be used. But you have an issue with Yossik's. Those kids are back there. I see them every night.
And they're raiding that bank parking lot too.
Yeah.
Foot patrol need to watch that. The foot patrol need to watch that.
One of my big problems is I've lived in this city off and on now for the last 20 years. What I've noticed is there's been a lot of money that's been thrown and dumped right into the riverfront and downtown Wilmington. But I don't see that money radiating out into the neighborhoods to bring the neighborhoods up at all. And if you can't bring the neighborhoods up, you're not going to get rid of the crime either.
Rockville got a lot of it because of the fact when Browntown, they put down like 4 new like home projects, like new houses and everything, and they had a lot of police down in Browntown, so it's been running. Because Hedgeville used to be so quiet, it was a really good place to live, and we had a lot of stuff going on here, positive, like as far as, we had block barbecues, your neighbors got together and done a lot of things together. But when they started remodeling Browntown and putting all those new homes out there, they put a lot of police officers out there too. So it ran a lot of people that were doing crime in Browntown to Hedgeville. That's when we started having, like, I guess, disputes about, okay, we've been over here forever being the little drug dealers, now we're trying to come over and take over. So that caused a lot of problem over here because Browntown is like, I mean, it's a lot of new residents over there, and they're really nice. It's like 4 new communities, but it brought a lot of it over here. So that's the problem we've been having, because as soon as that happened, it got worse.
Now, and, you know, this is sort of above my pay grade, you know, where the money gets spent. But, you know, the good news about, you know, Riverfront or some of the apartments that they're trying to build on Market Street and some of the commercial stuff they're trying to build there, if they can get people wanting to move into the city, it doesn't even necessarily matter which part of the city, and paying, I mean, one of the city's big challenges now is that it doesn't have enough people living here who are paying wage tax and working here and paying wage tax. And so the more people they can come that want to live here and pay that wage tax, work in the city and pay that wage tax, the more they have available to actually do stuff here. So for me, it's not sort of an either or thing, you know, if it gives them the ability to have the resources to be able to invest in these other neighborhoods, then,
Right.
you know, that, to me, that's good.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say on behalf of Parkway Academy, we truly appreciate you coming in and taking this time in the community. And we know you have to leave,
Yeah.
you have to go somewhere else, but we really appreciate you coming in the community, and you're most welcome to come again.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Thank you so much. Thank you.